Whatever the occasion, effortless elegance is right this way. Because Hilton brings you new ways to stay courtesy of the Nomad London. And it doesn't stop at award-winning dining in a space draped in velvet and illuminated by vintage chandeliers. No, this day goes beyond with unparalleled personalized service and attentive hospitality. Oh, and did we mention the Nomad London can be booked using your Hilton Honors points at Hilton.com? Hilton, for the stay.
You know that feeling when someone shows up for you just when you need it most? That's what Uber is all about. Not just a ride or dinner at your door. It's how Uber helps you show up for the moments that matter. Because showing up can turn a tough day around or make a good one even better. Whatever it is, big or small, Uber is on the way. So you can be on yours. Uber, on our way.
This episode is brought to you by Nespresso and Samra Origins by the Weekend Coffee Collection.
Introducing Samra Origins. My collaboration with Nespresso is a connection to my roots, to my mother, Samra. Coffee that hits the right notes. It transports you. Crafted with unique notes and bold soaring flavors. Experience a taste that moves you. Nespresso and Samra Origins.
Discover more at Nespresso.com.
Hello and welcome to The Price of Football, the show that looks at the money behind the beautiful game with me, Kevin Day, and Liverpool University's Kieran Maguire. Kieran, it's very nice of you to do a chirpy count in like that, but the smile didn't go to my eyes because, every now and again, Kieran, we will, for the sake of integrity, tell people that we're recording on a different night, and I feel the audience needs to know that we are recording on a Wednesday, but it's 8:15 in the morning. Now, I understand from anecdotal evidence that many of our lovely listeners will be up and about at this time of day, perhaps in their high-powered boardroom, walking their dog, going to the gym, but it don't come natural to me, Kieran, so this might be... Even Smudge just looked at me going, well, you're not off to North Wales again for an hour and a Wetherspoons, are you? This is normally the only other reason you get up this time of the day. There you are. It's what's the phrase, Kieran? I can't even think of the phrase. It's so early in the morning. That operational reasons, isn't it? Really,
sparrow fart, I think, is what you would call it.
Yes, but we have to. We're fitting in with each other's busy schedule.
Yes,
by which I mean I'm fitting in with your busy schedule. Although we're both on Sky Sports News today, so that's
we are. Yes,
obviously two.
Sadly, not as a double act.
Well, no, which would be great. Obviously, two producers who haven't liaised properly got me on one now and you on the next. So let's crack on, Kieran, because we'd hate to be late for Sky Sports News.
Absolutely.
Even though our listeners are our priority. How are you? You've got a snazzy Star Trek set of headphones on there.
Yeah, I'm up in Liverpool.
Yeah.
I think I'm giving a talk about something very soon, which is another reason why. Life is good. The sun's shining. For some reason, my window is broken.
What?
From
the outside or the inside?
On the outside. It's not me trying to get out. Perhaps it's one of our listeners trying to lob some dark Toblerone.
Could be
through the window. And thank you very much to Robert, who the dark Toblerone arrived the other day. I've hidden it from the rest of the family, even though I'm the only person that eats it. But just in case, got to ration it to myself.
Yeah, I'm just wondering, what floor are you on?
I'm on the second floor.
It'd take a lot of heaving, dark Toblerone, all that
Yes.
way. Let's get on with the news pod, Kieran, before I doze off on the microphone. First two stories take us to Manchester, and the first one is Manchester City fan group Trade Union Blues. It's a very interesting one, this, Kieran.
Yes. Anybody that's been watching TV in the last week or two will realise that Sky Sports are now broadcasting, I think, 215 Premier League matches.
Yeah.
We've got TNT Sports, who have got 50-odd, and therefore it doesn't take a genius to work out. That's not many football matches which are left, as far as not being broadcast is concerned. And that's fine. If that's the way that the clubs want to go. It's their toy and it's their relationship with the broadcasters. But what Manchester City have done is that they've said, you've got to attend 16 matches, or rather your seat has to be occupied for 16 matches.
Yeah.
And we now have a scenario in which the chances, if you're a Manchester City fan, chances of you being able to go to the Etihad for 3 o'clock on a Saturday aren't that great because of the requests and demands of the broadcast partners. And in addition to that, you can use the ticket transfer system, but you physically have to occupy the seat 10 times. And that makes you wonder, well, hold on, are we moving to Big Brother style facial recognition? Because otherwise, how can you determine whether or not you've utilised the ticket for at least 10 times? So, we've had this discussion before. What we are effectively doing as fans is we're saying, yes, we want to see our team, whether it's Manchester City, Manchester United, Crystal Palace, Brighton Hove Albion, whoever it may be, because that's part of our life. And we've been season ticket holders for many years. But what the clubs are now saying is that when you buy a season ticket, we now expect you to be available Friday night, Saturday lunchtime, Saturday 3 o'clock, Saturday evening, Sunday lunchtime, Sunday afternoon, Sunday evening, Monday evening. And they don't see anything wrong with that. So what's happened here, this has been a pushback. I think Manchester City fans are getting a little bit grumpy. They're saying, what happens if you've got a job which has demands where you can't make Fridays or you can't make Sundays? What happens if you are a fan who has some health issues and therefore getting to matches in evenings becomes more difficult for transport issues and so on? And therefore, they feel that the rules which have been introduced by Manchester City are prejudicial. They are effectively discriminating against those people who find it more difficult to attend matches at these normally relatively short notice changes of times. And that's a separate issue. We've seen the EFL do a very progressive thing by saying, these are the matches which are going to be shown for broadcast, and we're going to determine them on twice the year before the start of the season and in December, so therefore you know what's going to come up for the next 3 or 4 months. The Premier League and its broadcast partners will not commit to that, which is very disappointing. So therefore, the Manchester City organisation group, the trade union Blues, they've got involved with a legal firm who are now going to act on their behalf because they genuinely feel that traditional fans are being marginalised. And we've had this discussion before. You've served your purpose. You're now seen as bed blockers. We want you to move on. All of this nonsense about football's nothing without fans that we saw during COVID, all of those City fans who were at Main Road in the 80s and 90s when City were going through some rough times, who were there in League One, seeing them lose at home to Macclesfield and so on, or seeing them play at Macclesfield. All of those City fans, thanks very much. You no longer required. We are seeking a new relationship. And therefore, I think it's very good and it's encouraging to see this. One would hope perhaps that the other fan groups would sort of come together, and perhaps this is an opportunity for the Football Supporters Association as well to sort of organise, because we are becoming marginalised as season ticket fans. And in my opinion, it's further indication that football clubs don't really want us because there are more lucrative alternatives available. And that's fine, provided you're doing well in the Premier League. If your football club gets relegated to the Championship and, it's, no disrespect, it's Middlesbrough or Swansea on a Tuesday night, the chances of you being replaced by a tourist fan are significantly diminished.
Always with the Swansea. It's always Swansea. One hopes, Kieran, just as football fans in London coalesced around a couple of brilliant West Ham fan groups, this would be an opportunity for football fans in the Northwest to coalesce around Trade Union Blues. I must admit they're a new name to me, but clearly they're as well organised and efficient as other Man City fan groups. The facial recognition thing is the one that worries me because that has been mentioned in a couple of press releases, and just I don't. If you ask me why I'm worried about it, I wouldn't be able to tell you. But it's just not right somehow, and also it's going to add to the queues for those people who do have tickets to get in. And some of the stewarding in this country is shonky enough as it is without having to them usher you through cameras and so forth. And also, Kieran, I'd add to those groups of people who find it difficult to get to games. When you're a club as successful as Man City, or a club that's been as interesting to support as Man City in the past, they've got fans all over the country. Back in the 50s, 60s and 70s when times were hard, people from Manchester moved all over the country to get work. So, there will be hundreds of Man City fans travelling up from Devon, from London. They can't do that at the drop. They can't change their plans at the drop of a hat. And it's, no matter how big a club is, they need to start listening to fans like this. Having to say that, the new Man City home kit, Kieran, with the sash, that's chef's kiss. That's a lovely one. Also in Manchester, Kieran, the other club, one of the other clubs, before people in Greater Manchester send me angry tweets, one of the other clubs in Manchester, the results off the pitch haven't been brilliant, but on the pitch not brilliant, but off the pitch very good.
Yeah, this is a weird one. Manchester United announced its financial results for the third quarter, so that's the period January the 1st to the 31st of March 2025. And the club lost money, but the losses were significantly down. And on the back of that, the share price increased in value by 20%. So it's probably increased the value of Manchester United PLC on the New York Stock Exchange, probably in the region of in excess of $400 million. And I always say to students when I'm sort of teaching football finance issues, that's the what. You need to focus on the why.
Yeah.
So why are these profits up? Well, it's not necessarily for good reasons. Manchester United didn't have to pay bonuses to players for being in the Champions League, but they were in the Europa League. So therefore, they had more matches taking place this season than last season because they actually, Manchester United, people forget they got to the final of a European competition. The wage bill was lower due to the job losses. The wage bill was also lower due to the fact that they weren't paying win bonuses in the Premier League. And so it's not necessary. And then there were some ancillary issues in the sense that in 2024, Manchester United PLC paid out £35 million to a bunch of consultants to allow them to sell the shares to Ratcliffe and Co. Did they have to do that this year? So there were some one-off issues. There were some operational issues which weren't necessary. But the stock market seemed to jump on this. And if you'd bought in at the right time, Manchester United's share price is doing its best for a while. Because prior to that, it was still trading at less than the launch price in 2012. I think we're now up to in excess of $16. So it does show that the stock market does react to results, and B, in my opinion, I'm not sure it necessarily understands football finance because the underlying issues here, some of them are good. Certainly the results are not as bad as they've been painted. Why have they been painted so bad by the club owners? It's to justify the job losses. And the reality of the numbers is that Manchester United was never in as bad a position as Ratcliffe and Co. claimed it to be. And these are just further evidence that he was perhaps over-egging his pudding.
Maybe the New York Stock Exchange, Kieran, is a market we should be looking to exploit as a football finance podcast.
Yes.
I'm guessing I know the answer to this one, Kieran, but a rise in share prices wouldn't count as a rise in income, would it?
No, because the shares are being traded by the likes of you and me to one another. So a share price, and people think that stock exchanges are glamorous organisations. They actually sell second-hand products.
Oh,
it's no different to Borough Market. You're selling something that is already been bought and sold once or twice. So we're selling it. So you are a part owner of Manchester United. You own 100 shares, and you go and sell them to your mate Dave.
I think the one big difference between Borough Market, Kieran, and this won't mean a lot to listeners in Australia, for example, but I think I could probably afford shares in Man United more than I could afford cheese in Borough Market.
True. I was there at the weekend.
So I was there yesterday. Every now and again, I thought, I fancy a nibble of free cheese, because you get a sample. There's a drunk cheese stall, which I'm always drawn to. This Italian guy who sells cheese infused with alcohol, but he just has a lovely, enticing a range of samples. And obviously, if you have to leave it an hour, because if you go back every 10 minutes, he'll recognise you. But I come out of there quite merry and full of free cheese. Very handy. Two stories, Kieran, regarding broadcasting, one of which I think is rather sinister. But the first one relates to what you were saying earlier in the pod about the number of football matches that is going to be on Sky TV next year, because fewer people watched Premier League on TV last year than the season before.
Yes, they're at the most recent chief executive meeting, which took place last Thursday. The details were presented by the Premier League to the member clubs, which indicate that viewing numbers have decreased. Now, again, that's the what. Let's focus on the why. I think the why is driven by two things. First of all, why bother? Liverpool were the deserved champions.
Yeah.
And you can't actually get that excited about who's finishing fifth.
Yeah.
No matter how they try to dress it up, it's not the same. And in 5 of the last 8 seasons, I think the Premier League title wasn't determined until the last match, until the last weekend. So the problem is, if you have a product which has no jeopardy, then you're not incentivizing people to watch. And not only at the top end of the table, because for me, the relegation scrap is always just as interesting as who's going to win it. And again, I think it's fair to say that the 3 clubs who were relegated were effectively relegated by February. Yes, they could have done a turn results, but there was no indication that there was going to be an uptick in those results. So the product itself, from a qualitative point of view, lacked jeopardy. And then I think we've got to acknowledge the fact that fans feel that they're being priced out of football by the broadcasters. The fact that you need two subscriptions to the senior broadcast partners, and those subscriptions, they ain't going down in price.
They're not. Tell me about it.
So yeah, I've cancelled all of mine for the summer, and I will wait to see what prices are on offer, because you do sort of reach that sort of shrugging point of view. And then we've got the second issue, which I think links to our sort of second story, is that there is an alternative, and it is an illegal alternative.
Yeah.
And that is through the use of piracy. Now, you and I are both familiar with home taping is killing music from the 1970s and 80s, and I used, you start off by taping the top 40 on a Sunday night with Paul Burnett or someone like that, and also I used to religiously tape the John Peel Festive 50 every Christmas, but that was at the time when cassette tapes were just really coming on the market, and you realise you could tape off the radio. And what we now have is the equivalent in terms of you can use dodgy Fire Sticks, which you can access, pay probably 50 or 60 quid for it. I'm on WhatsApp groups where the majority of people are using that. And the reason why I don't is, I'll be perfectly honest, the optics don't look good. If I got caught using a Fire Stick, I think that would look fairly unprofessional of me. But the temptation is there. And I was, when I sort of speak to people who say, okay, well, why are you doing it? You know it's illegal. The response is twofold. First of all, it's a pricing issue. And we've seen how Spotify has effectively legitimized streaming. You again, go back 10 or 15 years, we had the likes of Napster and the Pirate Bay and so on, where you could access music through streaming illegally. The likes of Spotify, Apple Music, Amazon Music, all of these alternatives have come along, and for a price that people deem to be acceptable, the majority of consumers have shifted, because you were never quite sure what files you were downloading back in the day when streaming first became on. So I think there is a pricing issue, and secondly, there's a volume issue. If you want to have one of these Fire Sticks, by all accounts, you can now watch those matches at 3:00 on a Saturday afternoon where we have the blackout. So is there a case in terms of the product for now having a revision of the 3 p.m. blackout? And there are huge repercussions for grassroots football and alternatives to what you can see on television as well. But there is no doubt that this is a broader issue. And it does appear that the big brother element of, we're now saying that fans who illegally stream football matches could face prison sentences. Again, I'd say the optics, the Premier League, an institution which generates billions of pounds, is owned by billionaires whose significant number of employees are millionaires and multimillionaires, is now seen at cracking down on individuals. So that's the position where we're at. But there is a conceptual problem when you talk to fans. It is seen as being a victimless crime, rightly or wrongly. Yeah. Because who are the victims? The victims are the billionaire owners, the billion-funded broadcasters, and the multimillionaire players.
Yeah, I'm very proud of you, Kieran, because you segued seamlessly between those two stories. I didn't have to join in. So the second story is this threat of prison sentences for fans who stream football. What worries me here, Kieran, is because this is a generational thing. My lad and all my mates' lads and daughters, it just doesn't occur to them that they shouldn't be able to watch a football match they can't get to. Whereas I'm perfectly happy if I can't get to a Palace match, it's not on telly, I'll wait. Yeah. I'm perfect. It doesn't occur to me. It doesn't occur to me. No, I have to. It's my right to watch every single football game live. Unlike you, Kieran, I can't switch off my subscriptions during the summer, because what if I get the urge to watch the French second division rugby game halfway? Well, it's terrible not for that to be available. But the streaming thing, it has become. I think if you asked a lot of younger football fans whether streaming was illegal, they probably wouldn't be able to tell you. Some of them might argue they learn different languages by listening to a Palace game with a Turkish commentary. I don't know, but it's you're absolutely right about the optics. I mean, it comes back to that Man City story again, doesn't it? It's, the optics of forcing people to use their season ticket. The optics of forcing people to use a very expensive broadcast, and like you had, the subscription for the Sky and TNT just get higher every year. And it's like we can, it is one of those things. Ali and I will have a chat about streamlining finances. It's my job in a way. You kind of have to. The second division rugby are less able to argue, but it's just the way they announce these things as well. You'll go to prison. It's like, go after the people that are selling the Fire Sticks rather than the people that are using them.
I'm pretty certain that when I last looked, prisons were quite full.
Yes, and also full of Fire Sticks as well.
Yes.
If my reading of the Daily Mail is correct. I don't read the Daily Mail, of course. I wouldn't have it in the house. But listening to people who do read it, I believe prisons are still rather like holiday camps. I'm amazed we're not all scrabbling to get in there, Kieran, if they're as comfortable as they made them sound.
If you've shopped online, chances are you've bought from a business powered by Shopify. You know that purple Shop Pay button you see at checkout? The one that makes buying so incredibly easy? That's Shopify. And there's a reason so many businesses sell with it. Because Shopify makes it incredibly easy to start and run your business. Shopify is the commerce platform behind 10% of all e-commerce in the US. Sign up for your $1 per month trial and start selling today at shopify.com/promo. Go to shopify.com/promo.
At Capella University, you can learn at your own pace with our FlexPath learning format. Take 1 or 2 courses at a time and complete as many as you can in a 12-week billing session. With FlexPath, you can finish the bachelor's degree you started in 19 months and under $19,000. A different future is closer than you think with Capella University. Learn more at capella.edu. Fastest 25% of students. Cost varies by PACE, transfer credits, and other factors. Fees apply.
Talking of the Premier League, Kieran, you predicted this would happen when everybody in the world of English football demanding that the Premier League prevent clubs like Chelsea selling their hotels and their women's football teams to go. You said there's no desire from the clubs to do that, and they haven't.
That's correct. So again, we go back to the meeting of Premier League executives. The Premier League is keen, and I think the Premier League, people get a bit confused. They talk about the Premier League as being a decision-making body. The Premier League is an administrative body. The legislature is the clubs themselves. So the Premier League says, we feel that, again, optics look really bad. The credibility of the Premier League in terms of enforcing PSR rules looks significantly diminished if football clubs are allowed to sell women's teams to related parties, hotels to related parties, car parks to related parties, and to swap players around between either related parties or in glorified swap deals. And therefore, the Premier League wants to follow UEFA. And also, to a certain extent, also the EFL, where owners have said, we just don't think that this is appropriate. It didn't even get as far as a vote because the executive of the Premier League, before having a vote, you sort of have a quiet word, and there simply wasn't an appetite to outlaw these rules because clubs are viewing them as a get-out-of-jail-free card. If Chelsea, and I can understand, if Chelsea have done it, and have one of the better phrase, Chelsea have done nothing wrong.
Yeah.
The issue is whoever drafted the rule book didn't draft it particularly well, in my opinion. So Chelsea have followed the letter of the Premier League rulebook. And so some people are saying, well, if Chelsea can do it, and look what Chelsea have now done, they've got a squad which has cost £1.5 billion, which is at least £400 million more than any other squad in the Premier League. If Chelsea can do it, we surely reserve the right to use this as a get-out-of-jail-free card. And therefore, on the back of that, clubs want to have that as a backup policy. They don't necessarily want to employ it, but gets the 29th of June, that fullback you were hoping to go and sell to somebody for £20 million, the player doesn't want to go, the deal's fallen through, we're going to be a breach of PSR. I know that what we would do, we'll sell the women's team to ourselves. You look at what happened to Chelsea. When did they sell the women's team themselves? Oh, the 28th of June. Blimey. We're not a cynical show, as we've often said. But a cynic would say Chelsea knew that they were absolutely screwed over PSR 2 days before their year end. They sell this club to somewhere else in the group at a valuation which bears no resemblance to any other football club that's ever been sold before, and I suspect won't be sold at that rate, at that valuation metric multiple again, unless the club's really in deep doo-doo. So that's where we are. If I was a fan of Nottingham Forest or Everton, who have had points deductions on the basis of not applying these types of rules, I guess I would be very disappointed. If I was an executive of the club, if I was an owner of those clubs, I'd feel very disappointed because it's clearly against the spirit of the law. But you talk to a lawyer, he says there's no such thing as spirit.
Yeah. Without turning to the clubs to vote on this, Kieran, would the Premier League be able to at least bring in some kind of fair value committee to look at the prices? Because I think that's the issue for most people. It's not just that Chelsea sold the women's team to themselves, it's at that ludicrous price. So surely the Premier League should be able to say, this is a London club, we'll get an independent valuation in, or an independent estate agent to say this hotel is worth this much. It's certainly not worth as much as Chelsea have sold it to themselves for. Would the Premier League be able to do that?
Yes, it has. And in terms of the hotel that was sold a year earlier, the Premier League did determine that the fair value of the hotel was substantially less than Chelsea had booked in their accounts. And also, if you take a look at Chelsea's accounts, look at the small print, it does suggest that this very convenient £200 million price on a company which is valued in the books at just over 1 million. This is subject to investigation by the Premier League. So what are Chelsea doing? Oh, well, yeah, very conveniently, they've got some random American bloke to buy 10% of the women's team, which values the women's team at 240 million.
Yeah.
Pure coincidence. He's come from nowhere, no record of entering into women's football. And this will be used as a counterbalance against the Premier League's legal team.
Well, speaking of Nottingham Forest, Kieran, and Crystal Palace fans have been speaking of Nottingham Forest.
I can imagine.
In the last 2 days, Kieran. I don't want to dwell on this story, to be perfectly honest, for two reasons. Okay. One, I'm weary of it, to be perfectly honest. I had 309 WhatsApp messages through the day yesterday. I don't really want to talk about it until the UEFA decision is made. Also, I don't want to get sued, essentially. Nottingham Forest have written to UEFA over the UEFA situation, Palace taking part in it. There's some doubt as to what, no one even knows what the letter contains. There are sources saying it's purely asking for clarification. There are sources saying they have information that they wish to share with UEFA. So, but whatever happens, Nottingham Forest have stuck their oar in to this situation.
Yes, and that's the what. Again, let's focus on the why. So we don't know the contents of that letter. I was out a few weeks ago with somebody from the Premier League club talking about European football, and they said to me, conference, if we're honest, we'd rather not go there.
Yeah.
And why is that? It's because if you take a look at the metrics for last year, Chelsea won the competition and they generated less money than the side finishing 36th out of 36 in the Champions League. So Chelsea made just over 20 million euro. And people say, oh yeah, 20 million euros, 20 million euro. By the time you pay the player bonuses, by the time the fact that you've got to have a bigger squad, and let's face it, nobody's got a bigger squad than Chelsea, but you need to have a bigger squad because you are playing Sunday, Thursday. So therefore, injuries, suspensions, loss of form, these things have an impact. By the time you take into account that if you are playing in Europe, the chances are that you might finish a few places below where you'd normally expect to be. So I don't want to get you too worried about here, Kevin. You might not finish 12th next season.
What?
No, exactly. Yeah. I know, a controversial comment. But if you take a look at those clubs that have played, and I remember talking to somebody connected to Burnley. Burnley, people forget, Burnley qualified for Europe about 7 or 8 years ago, and that was a fantastic achievement. But Sean Dyche hated it because what Sean Dyche used to do was you play your match at the weekend, you come in on a Monday, and then you start working on your drills and you start working out, okay, next week we've got West Brom, or next week we've got Palace, or next week we've got Manchester City, and you start working out your strategies. If you are playing in Europe on a Thursday, you can't really do that. You have to go out on the Wednesday, so there's a day lost. You've got your match day, you've got your recovery day on Friday. You come in on a Saturday, it's like training, and all of a sudden, and Burnley's league position fell. And again, they actually lost money because it's £3.5 million per place. So you put all of those things into the equation, and this is why Forest are doing it. It's not because it's not personal. It is business. It's not Marinakis either, because apparently Nottingham Forest have a blind trust, and Marinakis has nothing to do with Nottingham Forest, according to the lawyers.
Yeah, well,
it's nothing to do with him being unpleasant. It's because Nottingham Forest will make twice as much money from the Europa League as they would generate from the Europa Conference. And on top of that, if you win the Europa League, as we've seen with Spurs, it's another option, it's another opportunity, which Palace currently have to get into the Champions League. So those are the driving factors. Forest fans, the ones that I've been in contact with, they're slightly embarrassed by this. Fans of other clubs, all I would say, Kevin, is that 99% of fans that I know are in your corner on this, because they say that could be my club. And what's happened in terms of the non-submission of paperwork is a separate issue.
I sense you are correct. The goodwill most of us are getting from other fans is tangible. Also, I sense that the media in the last couple of days has swung towards the idea that we will be in Europe, rather than some of the misinformed, misguided speculation and scaremongering of last week. I'm glad you mentioned the blind trust, Kieran, because I shall put my soapbox back under the table, because I was about to clamber on it, because obviously, as we know, Mr. Marinakis has no control over Nottingham Forest at the moment. So what he was doing on the pitch a couple of weeks ago, I don't know, because technically he was just a pitch invader, because he has no control over Nottingham Forest. But I'm sure...
Well, I think he was expressing his concern about the welfare of the player by completely ignoring the player and going to talk to the manager.
Yes, he did. Yeah, and I worry that Mr. Marinakis may have looked at the Sky News and gone, "What? We've sent a letter? I didn't know anything about this." Secondly, Kieran, I'm not the only one who's noticed some quite expensive transfer links between Nottingham Forest and Lyon. There's been a lot of activity. I make no comment about why that is the case, but I'm sure if we've noticed it, other people have noticed it as well.
Yes, and again, I don't want to be accused of being cynical, but are we operating now in some form of 4D chess where Textor is leveraging on this in order to try to get a decent price for his Palace shares?
Well, if he's trying to do that, he shouldn't have spent the last 2 years moaning about the fact he has no control over the club, which, again, I presume UEFA will have noticed. Morecambe fans waking up to some good news, some interesting new owners, possibly.
Yes, Panjab Warriors are the new formal owners. So there has been an ongoing issue with the Bond Group, who were the former owners. Morecambe have been through tough times. Monies haven't been paid on time and so on. But at least they do have someone going forward. It'll be interesting to see what are the motivations behind Panjab Warriors, what their plans are for the club. But at least we have a bit of clarity. And once again, I think you have to give an awful lot of praise to the unpaid directors of Morecambe FC, who have looked after that club as best they can under very trying circumstances, with a want-away owner who appears to have no care or concern about the future of the club. So it's a good news story. We just have to try to get a bit more clarity over what's happening with the owners going forwards.
Can I ask, Kieran, and obviously I mean no disrespect to Morecambe when I ask this question, but what would be the attraction for Panjab Warriors in acquiring a club like Morecambe?
Well, that is where I have my slight concerns as well. It's got one of the smallest fan bases. Geographically, it's an absolutely gorgeous place to visit. Yeah, but that in itself wouldn't be enough of an attraction to bring in additional fans. Doesn't get very much attention as far as the media are concerned. You do wonder, people say to me, well, everybody wants to do another Wrexham. But the issue with Wrexham is that the brand is more to do with the owners than the football club. And that's no disrespect to, I'm absolutely delighted for the people of Wrexham, having run a double glazing company in Wrexham in the past, and sort of known the hardship and the misery and sort of the sneeriness that comes from places not too far away towards Wrexham. So I'm really pleased for them. But you can't have too many Reynolds and McElhenney stories because you've got first mover advantage, and people get sort of football documentary fatigue very, very quickly. So I still can't quite work out the motivations of the owners.
Loath as I am, Kieran, to mention the Daily Mail again, but it's interesting how the Mail, the Telegraph, and the Times have spent a whole year demanding that Labour Chancellor Rachel Reeves changes her mind on the winter fuel allowance, and when she does, it's a humiliating climb down. It's a humiliating turnaround. It's like, come on, lads, pick a side. Oh, you've picked a side. We know what the side you picked is. It's good news for a lot of pensioners, but also good news for Birmingham City, Kieran, from Rachel Reeves this week.
Yes, it does appear that the Chancellor is keen to promote infrastructure projects, one of which is the expansion of the travel network in the city of Birmingham. And I mean, I personally love a tram. One of the greatest things about living in Manchester for so long was having the trams there. That they are genuinely wonderful things, and also you feel you get on a tram and you instantly feel just slightly more continental. Even if you're going to Salford, you feel there's a slight little swagger in the air. And again, I don't know why, because you associate it with many of those beautiful European cities. So it won't go all the way out to the potential ground, but it will improve the transport links to Birmingham. There is no doubt that the new owners, Tom Wagner and co, have amazing plans. Now, whether they come to fruition or not, we will have to wait and see. But they are incredibly bullish in terms of what they want to achieve with Birmingham City. One of the issues is going to be, okay, how are people going to get there? I'll be the first to admit, getting to Brighton's ground, pain in the arse, because it's out of town. Villa is the same. Going to the city of Birmingham, anybody that's ever gone there as an away fan, Birmingham's not great, but this would certainly help going forwards. And if it's going to be a 60,000 capacity stadium, it's going to need better transport links.
I haven't been out to the middle of Birmingham in the last 20 years, Kieran. It's incredible. A fantastic transformation. It's a beautiful... It's always been a good city to visit, but the middle of Birmingham now is gorgeous. I love the Croydon tram. The Croydon tram is fantastic, although I was on it recently with a friend of mine who said if you half close your eyes, you could be in Prague. It's like, no, you have to fully close your eyes. Half closing your eyes is not enough in Croydon to make any Prague. To think that you're in Prague.
Ryan Reynolds here from Mint Mobile. With the price of just about everything going up, we thought we'd bring our prices down. So to help us, we brought in a reverse auctioneer, which is apparently a thing.
Mint Mobile Unlimited Premium Wireless. How to get 30, 30, how to get 30, how to get 20, 20, 20, how to get 20, 20, how to get 15, 15, 15, 15, just $15 a month? Sold! Give it a try at mintmobile.com/switch.
Upfront payment of $45 for 3-month plan, equivalent to $15 per month required. New customer offer for first 3 months only. Speed slow after 35 gigabytes if network's busy. Taxes and fees extra. See mintmobile.com.
This episode is brought to you by Indeed. When your computer breaks, you don't wait for it to magically start working again. You fix the problem. So why wait to hire the people your company desperately needs? Use Indeed's sponsored jobs to hire top talent fast. And even better, you only pay for results. There's no need to wait. Speed up your hiring with a $75 sponsored job credit at Indeed.com/podcast. Terms and conditions apply.
Good news as well, Kieran, for the Arsenal women's team.
Yes, Arsenal have announced that all 11 of the WSL games are now going to take place, I'd have to say a hybrid, but at the Emirates Stadium next season. If we take a look at the average attendances this year, they've exceeded 30,000. I think Arsenal have marketed the WSL matches really well. You can get a season ticket. It works out, I think it's about 84 quid if you're under 16. Yeah, that's what, £7 a match. Adults tickets for less, I think it's less than 140 quid.
Yeah.
You'll pay that to watch a single men's match.
Yeah.
At the same time, they're not giving them away, and that was always my concern. That if you underprice WSL as a product, it's very difficult to then justify increasing the prices. So I think they've got the price. It looks really good. Somewhat bizarrely, they're not going to be playing the group matches for the Champions League at the Emirates, but they will be playing the knockout matches, assuming that they get there. And given that they are the champions, a fantastic achievement, by the way. So that's good. So I think this is a really positive step by Arsenal. And again, it's another example of build it and they will come. I know we've had this discussion with Crystal Palace women's team and Brighton's women's team that, to a certain extent, they're rattling around if you're playing at Selhurst or the Amex and so on. Giving them a few more opportunities to build up a fan base, to build up relationships, to build up engagement. And Arsenal have shown how it can be done. At the same time, you need to have a product which is worth watching and teams which are going into matches with a fair chance of getting a result.
Is it simply a matter of time then, Kieran? Because I was going to ask you, my question, do you have an opinion on why Arsenal have been so much more successful than other big clubs in growing women's football? I hate to use the word brand, but at short notice, it's the only thing I can think of. I mean, they've been incredibly successful. And I know they've won things, which helps. But other clubs, big clubs, Chelsea, for example, Villa, would be looking at Arsenal going, well, how can we emulate that success? But as you say, maybe that Arsenal started earlier and have put the effort in.
It is a case of it putting in the hard yards. It's about going out to find out, okay, who is our fan base? Because if you go into the toxic cesspit that is social media, I don't think you get a very balanced view because there's far too many angry men on social media.
Of course.
And therefore, go to a WSL match and you will see a different demographic. It's difficult to go to both the men's matches and the women's matches. In terms of that Venn diagram, there doesn't have to be a crossover, but people forget there are many football fans who don't necessarily want to go and watch men's football, who've been priced out of it, don't like the atmosphere, don't like the hostility, don't like the lack of inclusivity. And what you will get at WSL, you will get more women attending, more diverse crowds attending, more young people. Yes, it is kid friendly. I would certainly consider taking my granddaughters to a women's game before I go to a men's game, for example. And on the back of that, you build up a fan base. I think Arsenal, everybody should be going to Arsenal and saying, okay, what have you done? Get the pricing right, get the marketing right, get fan groups involved, and all of a sudden, for £12-13, if that's what it's going to cost you, in a world which is very expensive, it costs you more than that to go to the cinema these days. Yeah. It's actually well priced, good product, great atmosphere, and you have a good time. What's not to like?
I have to say, watching the England-Senegal game last night, I was going to say interestingly, but just know why. Cause I'm missing Gareth Southgate, I have to say. But I didn't notice until halfway through the game that it was an all-women officiating team. But it was very interesting after that, and noticing that big burly men players, their instinct to turn and shout at the referee, and when they do, they go, "Oh, this ain't going to look good."
Yeah.
So they were much more polite and respectful, which is how they should be. Full stop. I disagreed with her decision to disallow the goal, but I understand why it was made. But it was interesting the tangible respect that was being shown by these blokes. Also, I was so annoyed. One of those hundreds of WhatsApp groups yesterday was his mate Jesse going, Ismail Assar is 4-1 to score any time against England tonight. Dan Burn could be starting. I'm really annoyed that some of the messages I got this morning was people boasting about how much money they made on this mailer star. I didn't. We go down under. We don't often get to Australia these days, Kieran, but this is not a brilliant story to visit Australia for.
No, it's not. Football Australia is an organisation which has a relationship with the gambling industry in the sense that it can effectively determine what bookmakers are allowed to offer to punters. And one of the things which you're allowed to bet on is yellow cards. And that's fine until it's not fine. We've often spoken about the integrity of football in terms of at Premier League level, players are on so much money, the incentive to get involved in something like that is therefore diminished, although there is an ongoing case, of course, in relation to that at present. But there have been, I think, 2 cases involving Australian football in the course of the last 12 months. And now the local state commission is looking at Football Australia and saying, well, have you been lazy? Have you been negligent in allowing this? If you are betting on win, lose or draw, or if you are betting on the score, then to a certain extent, if a player wants to do something, there has to be a degree of collusion. Getting a yellow card is something which you can engineer on an individual basis.
Yeah, kick the ball away.
So that's the accusation. What's also interesting is that Football Australia also appears to be paid by the bookmakers to then allow the bookmakers. And one of my arguments, people say to me, well, how do we fix football finances? I've argued from day one that the equivalent of a tote levy on football gambling bets, where that money does go more towards grassroots football, is one way of addressing the relationship. The gambling industry, in my opinion, has been the most successful stakeholder, along with players and agents, from the creation of the Premier League and the introduction of televised football as part of our lives and the introduction of smartphones and so on. And there's nothing wrong with that because, you were talking about Sar at 4-1. I bet on Palace to win the FA Cup. And I decided that 5 minutes before kickoff, and because I didn't have to go down to the bookies and so on.
Yeah.
So there's, we are not anti-gambling at all. The gambling industry does very well out of football. I just feel that football could do slightly more well out of gambling.
Yeah, they could take a leaf out of horse racing's book, really, which there's at least a symbiotic relationship between the bookmakers and the sport. Our last story, Kieran, takes us to the National League and gives me an opportunity to apologise to an old friend of mine because not 2 weeks ago I inadvertently claimed that the new interim head of the National League was much loved veteran press officer at Crystal Palace, Terry Byfield, which I believe caused some panic for a couple of...
especially in the Byfield family.
And I apologise to Terry for any inadvertent panic setting in. It was called Phil Alexander, much loved ex-CEO of Crystal Palace, who's the new interim head of the National League, who we are hoping to be able to talk to in the near future. But they've unveiled a new sponsor this week, Kieran, who I believe is called Terry Byfield. Is that right?
Absolutely. Yes. So it's now going to be the Enterprise Rent-A-Car National League. It doesn't roll off the tongue, but I think it's good to see that they are reaching out. For me, it's further indication that the National League is still an attractive product as far as commercial partners are concerned. And I would say to anybody who's not been to a National League game, either the National League or North and South, get yourself down there. You will turn back the clock, and not in a nasty way. The standard of football is good. The knowledge of the fan bases is just incredible. And I'm eternally grateful to the fans of Dorking, who's myself and the Baroness went to watch Worthing versus Dorking, and I'm 6'3", Baroness isn't, and sort of in true sort of old bloke chivalry, it was it's lady here, lads. Give her a bit of space, she can't see. And that came from the Dorking fans. And this was a match that was really important to the club. So, for any of you that want to see a bit of full-blooded football, give it a go. Non-league day is a great day in the football calendar.
Yeah. Well, I also like to think that the the old school football fans will have been going, "Now keep the language down, lads. There's a lady here." Until 15 minutes later, they're going, "Excuse me, love, would you mind keeping the language down?" There's old people.
You've heard what the Baroness has said about Mark Cucurella. Yeah.
It'll be no surprise to hear, Kieran, I'm not an expert in this sort of thing, but I understand Vanarama's relationship with the National League was an incredibly successful one.
Yes.
For both parties, and to the extent that the National League was referred to as the Vanarama for most part for several years. So it may take a bit of time for the new name to bed in, but it was very for not that much money. Vanarama got a huge amount of brand recognition.
Exactly. So good relationship, good product, fair price for all. And everybody's a winner.
Yeah. Don't forget, you can now join our Price of Football Club, where you'll get ad-free listing, bonus episodes, and more. Just go to priceoffootball.com and click on Join the Club to sign up today. If you have a question you'd like answered on our regular Tuesday questions show, you can email us at questions@priceoffootball.com. You can follow us, of course, on Twitter X, and you can find us on YouTube. And if you'd like to buy our book, you can find details on the same website, priceoffootball.com. We'll be back with our Tuesday questions episode on Tuesday. Oh, yeah, I was confused. It's early in the morning. In the meantime, I shall hand you over to Mr. Kieran Maguire for his customary farewell.
Well, thanks again to everybody for getting in contact, for keeping us on our toes, for all the feedback we get through a variety of means. We're looking forward to the end of season Price of Football quiz taking place next Tuesday. And even if you just want to dip your toe in the water, effectively, you could just sign up for 1 month to be a club member, and you'll be able to do that for £3.99. There's no prizes, but it's great fun. Kevin's an absolutely brilliant quizmaster, and the listeners have a thoroughly good time. And it's a good 90 minutes, to put it mildly. But if you don't want to do that, absolutely understand. But there's another way. We've now got 2,500 reviews on various platforms. If you want to log on, take your 30 seconds, helps us in the charts, helps us with algorithms. Just give the show a review if you're enjoying it. Say whatever you want. It doesn't bother us. We can cope with it. You could even say you would rather have the show presented by Barry from EastEnders and Mark Ormond.
Oh my God!
I'm a huge Soft Cell fan.
Oh.
I remember the first time going along to Soft Cell many years ago. I was in my guy liner. I was a tall and willow young man. That's right. And I spent most of my time trying to avoid the affections of a 40-year-old photocopier salesman called Keith, who wanted to take me back home with him. And I'll come to listen to the music, dude. And then the last time I went to see Soft Cell, which was a couple of years ago, I also seemed to be getting chatted up by a 40-year-old photocopier salesman. So some things never change, but the music of Mark Ormond and Soft Cell is still brilliant.
What's the attraction you have for photocopier salesmen?
I don't know. I don't know what type of photocopier salesman vibe I send off.
I have to say hello, wave goodbye is always in my top 5.
Yes.
What a voice that man had. Also, yes, you do take part in the quiz. The answer to one of the questions is which England international striker I inadvertently really annoyed. And yes, this will be the third time there's been a question about which England international striker I inadvertently really annoyed, because it's, as you know, I have a habit of inadvertently annoying lots of high-profile people. But we'll find out the answer to that one if you take part in our quiz. I hope you do, because it's always really good fun. And also, if you're thinking about it, the questions are guessable. To be some of them are guessable. Basically, you don't need previous knowledge of football finance to join in, and you will get a lot of gossip from Kieran. And possibly some comments about Nottingham Forest that I wouldn't be able to make on the pod. Who knows? Bye, everybody.
Bye.
The Price of Football. The price of football.